Mason, it's nice to finally meet you.
Thanks for finally getting an interview with me. Yeah.
You know, I mean, I've seen you compete for a while. I love your approach to the steeplechase. You actually know how to hurdle, which is a good thing. Because there was an era where Americans just went into the steeple, and it was like a guy who sucked at the 2 mile or the mile, they would kind of throw him in. You know, you had the specialists like George Young and you know, Mark Rogan and Brian Deemer, right? And you know, the reason why those guys did well in Marsh, because they could actually
Deemer Marsh were good hurdlers. Yeah. Still get shit from Roddy about not being as good as them. So.
Oh, well, of course. You are with one of the finest coaches, I think one of the most underrated coaches in the country, Ron Warhurst, and I remember him coaching the Heikkinen brothers, you know, very fine steeplers. And he must be having a lot of fun with you, giving you a little bit of trouble each day.
Oh, yes.
Do you do a lot of hurdle work?
The honest answer is I need to do more. Yes and no. Like right now, the weather's great. Throw the hurdles up on the outdoor track, and we can do them. You know, it's a little tough during indoor season when you're like, you can't do them outside. There's a foot of snow on the track, and only time we're going to the 200-meter track is for a session. So, but yeah, now, you know, my goal this year is actually get back into a little bit better routine. I think I got a little sloppy last year. It's kind of one of those things like, thought I made the Olympic team, I knew how to do everything, and you realize like, I can need to kind of touch base on all this stuff still. So this year, you know, we're starting with the basics and keep it in the program a little bit more.
Talk to me about making the Olympic team.
Yeah, one of those, I mean, such a magical season where things kind of, middle of the pandemic, a lot of things weren't going well for people, but for me, running was going amazing. I don't know whether it was the, like, almost the open-endedness, which made things less pressure, you know, especially in the build up into that 2021 year. It was running became the social outlet. There was nothing else to do. Willis, Ron, and I would meet up down at the track with a couple other buddies. We had an 800 guy that was in grad school, Mitchell Black, and like we would just rip, you know, awesome track sessions. You know, like beautiful summer evening in Ann Arbor, and it was like that was the running. And all of a sudden, we get into really good shape, and I was unsponsored at the time, and this is when I first started working with Ron, and you know, it kind of turned into like this great ball of momentum that I like, you know, kind of rejuvenated at a point in my career you could arguably say was like, wasn't living up to kind of the potential I'd showed after winning an NCAA championship in college. Just, you know, kind of like lackluster years, especially hadn't PR'd in steeple, like PR'd in a couple other events, but really wasn't like finding a good rhythm. It was like all of a sudden this rhythm momentum came back. And so, you know, I entered 2021 setting PRs across the board, and it was, you know, as we get closer and closer to the trials, it was this excitement that not only was I like going to have a really good shot at making team, it was almost becoming, I have a shot to win the trials even. Like it was, so we just had this great energy, great team. You know, Hobbs Kessler had just set the high school national record, so we had this young gun who like is just bursting with energy and excitement to be around us and looking up to us as role models. So it just rejuvenated us having kind of someone that was really excited to be around some other pros, and like we just had this great cohesion as a unit, as a team. And again, it was almost like started as a social outlet during the pandemic that turned into like this high performance thing of like, let's have Ferlic make the Olympic team. Let's have Hobbs set all these high school records. Willis is going for his 5th team and 20 straight years at the mile. And it was like, everything was just, it was kind of a Cloud 9 season that was like, I don't want to say like we're searching to re-replicate because it's never great to do comparisons, but it was just something that will like live on as like a perfect track season in every way.
I was at the Portland our Portland meet weekend of Memorial Day. When you ran there, it was you and Hobbs.
Yeah, the 335 and how
Hobbs brought up that he had to get by you.
Yes, a little inner rivalry there, right?
I was kind of going, wow, Steepler has got some leg speed, because I mean Marsh's best mile was a 4:03. You know, I mean, I think Brian may have broken, Deemer may have broken 4.
Yes.
And I'm just trying to remember. And I know Krogan came. God, no, he broke 4 because I just interviewed him a few weeks ago. We were just talking about stuff, and so, you know, and I came from the era of like there was a Polish steepler, Bronislaw Malinowski, we're going to go from 354 to 2753. I mean, Doug Brown at the NCs one time ran the 10 and then came back and ran the steeple because 10 I can score some points for Tennessee, right? Here they won in 74. But so you see these guys with this massive strength, you see guys with speed. You have that combination, you know?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that's what I kind of like to pride myself on as a steepler.
Yeah.
I didn't start this. I never steepled in high school.
Really?
No. I mean, went to small division Minnesota school. You know, ran the mile and 2 mile and state champion. You know, got recruited to Michigan and didn't even run the steeple until my sophomore year. And I was like terrified of the steeple. And like I think a coach was waiting for me to mature a little bit at that point, but saw the potential. As, you know, of course, I'm like almost 6'4", long legs, pure legs, you could say. And I was like, this guy is probably built for this event. And, you know, I was running well in the 5, but I was like, I wanted to be a 5K guy.
Yeah.
And, you know, everyone wants to be a miler. If I can't be a miler, I'll be a 5K guy. Like, and the first steeplechase I ever did, I won and like set the current leading time in the Big Ten, whatever, like the week before the conference meet. It was like, that's your event, you know?
Did you break 9 your first time?
Yeah. First time I was 8:53, I want to say, 51. Yeah. And so it was almost like a little bit of like a duck to water, just like, like I was always good at cross. I love cross country. Yeah. And I draw the parallels that like, you know, cross country, you got to find like a rhythm. You know, you have hills, you have mud or footing, whatever. They like kind of try to breaks you out of like your focus and like kind of this like riding the line. And it's the same thing in the steeple. It's like you have to hurdle, you have to do the barriers, but you have to always find the rhythm. You're always trying to search right up on the edge where if you push too far, you're going to blow up and those barriers are going to grow 10 feet tall. You know, you have to still be able to hurdle. There's always this level of self-control. And so I think it's like it just fit my style of racing and my mentality, kind of my calculated like, okay, you know, this is exactly like the effort and I can hold this tempo and, you know, drop people. So
can you hurdle with either leg?
I can, yeah. Okay. That's also a blessing.
Because Mark Rowland, who used to coach up at the Oregon Club, Mark told me that he took 6 months and went to an intermediate hurdle coach to learn. And I think he got down to 55 and I was like, wow, because I know there was a guy from Santa Monica Track Club, Bill McCullough, who was at 8:32. He could run 52 point in the 400 hurdles.
That's pretty
good.
And
he did it a couple times. And I was just like, wow, but being able to hurdle and being able to do it off either leg because, you know, there's traffic jams in the races. How do you juggle that? Do you try to, do you have a philosophy when you run the steeple? Do you try to go out at a pace that you're looking or are you watching the race? Are you just analyzing all the time?
A bit of both. I mean, the steeple's it's such interesting, it's totally different than any other race I run the track. Like until you run the steeple, you don't understand it because the race doesn't really get hard until like a K to go. Like it almost, you know, you're running 66s, whatever, which is like for 3K doesn't seem crazy. In the first couple laps, the barriers you're just floating over, but you don't realize it like it's this compounding factor and that you have to get to 2-3 laps to go with enough juice in the legs and pop in the legs to get over these things with rhythm. Because as soon as you start stuttering or like slowing down into them, those 66s turn into 70s and like you don't even notice, you know, like it's so my strategy, you know, well, one, I'm really tall, so I like to have some good room to hurdle. So I don't know, most of my races I position myself in the front. Like I love a clear run at the barrier because I think that's important, right? If you can get a clear run at the barrier, you can have an efficient hurdle. You're
controlling the situation,
controlling the race.
So you're going to have less chance of a screw up.
Exactly.
Too,
I just like to like kind of having control. So I like to either dictate the pace, and that's one thing about the steeple too is like almost dictating the pace gives you the freedom to run the race you want. You know, and sometimes in the 5 you want to be the second or third guy so you can just shut your mind off. It doesn't work that way. At steeple you always have to be on. You have to be finding that line, and so I like to be up front, clear room to run. Then I can hurdle with both legs, so it's more efficient, especially the water pit. I can do the water pit and be
What's
leg.
the key to doing a successful water pit?
I'm still, I don't have it perfectly figured out. I think it's pretty good. Like when I have a good pit in a race, it just feels like butter.
1 foot wet?
1 foot wet,
okay,
So the thing is, maintaining momentum into the barrier. It's especially when there's traffic, you want to maybe take like a quick break step to like line up your stride.
Okay.
And so if you can like get a clear run and almost accelerate in the last 2 or 3 steps into the barrier and then flick off, you'll just sail right over the top. And thankfully I've got like, there we go, much better. Yeah.
Mr. Turnbull, you guys, this is professional show
Come catch me at the blackjack table.
Wow.
Yeah,
let's go do that.
But being like long legs, I think one of my strengths in the steeple too is like being able to like clear that water pit fast, like land in 1 foot and just bounce out. And you saw at the Olympic trials, is honestly I got around the guy for third out of the pit. I hit the ground. It was just immediate reaction. You start sinking in.
How did you keep your cool then? Were you totally flipping out, going, I'm really close. I got to keep my stuff together.
Yeah, so I actually, it probably was less nervous for me in the moment because I was just dialed in. It was driving Ron and Nick and my family nuts. And to be all honest, truth, I mean, could say whatever, but I was in shape to win the trials that year. Like it became, if you just run, you won't make the team. I think we have a shot to win. And like, I felt great in the prelims and like everything up into it, and we get to the final, and maybe it was a little bit of combo of the nerves, knowing that like you just have to be top 3 at the end of the day. It was I ran defensively, and we talk about like I like to be up front and controlling things. I kind of defaulted to Hillary and race strategy basically and Bernard's, and like when they made a break at like it was just in like penultimate water jump, so 500 to go. I was like stuck a little bit in 4th and couldn't quickly respond, and so it quickly came into, oh shoot, they made a good move and I'm in 4th now, to like being like I need to move around and get up to the front and try to challenge for the win, to being like I just got to get this 3rd place spot. Like the biggest thing is just don't mess up in this last lap here. So it's always nervous, right? The steeple is like, it's one of those events, there's no, you could fall, you could clip a trail leg, you could clip a toe, and your race is over. That last barrier, you might think you're home free and you just relax too much and lose focus, and boom, you slam. I fell at Penn Relays this year doing the exact same thing. I think I was just like cruising along and just lost focus and smacked my trail leg, so it's like, it was until I got over the last barrier was like, I felt like I was holding my breath the last like 200 of that race, get in the water pit, okay, through, explode out the water pit, get around the guy into 3rd, okay, I'm in 3rd, but I got to get over this barrier, someone's coming, and like just feeling like there's until you're over the last barrier, until you're out of the finish line, really there's no guarantee. In
and at the time, Tracksmith had come on as a sponsor for you.
Yes. So
and Nick was working for Tracksmith by that time.
Yep. So Nick had started full-time employment. It's kind of phased out his career, long career at the Adidas, and then on great terms and stuff like that, but was looking to kind of get in a different role in the running world, right? And so joined Tracksmith, and actually, they reached out to me at the start of that year and was like, they were looking to put together kind of a core group of athletes they were going to sponsor going to the trials, and I had wasn't not re-signed by Nike that like the year of 2020, and so pandemic year gap, and so like went a year without a sponsor. It's hard, right? How do you race in a pandemic to show fitness or anything, right?
No.
I was like super grateful for Tracksmith and
all the brands.
They were great.
Hi guys, how are you going to do this? And then there was a sprint meet where a bunch of sprinters ran like 5 or 6 different events, and I'm calling the brands going, guys, how are you going to look at this? And they're just all pissed off. They're like, that's not the spirit of our contract, man. So it was a weird.
I mean, I was unsponsored, so I kind of could do my own thing, and I actually look back on it too, and it added a little bit of fuel to the fire, right? When someone tells you, we're not going to re-sign your contract because we don't think you have a shot of making a team. First reaction was like, well, hell, I'm prove you wrong. And like, not that like I did the sport for money. I do it for, I love training. I love the people I hang out with. I love the racing itself. The contract's just validation that you're doing things right? And so then it was like, okay, well, I'll prove wrong. I'll go make this team. And so it was awesome to have, a brand that believed in me at the time, pick me up, and, got some great after party photos with them. They were soaked. It was amazing. It was a great time.
Some great pics. There's Kevin Morris did some great stuff with you. And there's a picture that I think it was Courtney White did of you. You're exhausted after the race, and I put that up friggin' everywhere, man, because it was like the loneliness of the long distance runner for me.
Yes.
It's just a kill. And I'm
That
trying
race,
to.
that was so brutal. It was
Yeah.
like 100 degrees
Oh, it
on
was-
the track that day, which people like. You look at the photos, you can't really tell. It
Yeah.
was horrible. So it was the middle of it's June or no,
Yeah.
July actually, July. 100 degrees. The pollen is insane. Like I have like seasonal allergies, and it was just like
Oh, yeah.
combination of this heat. Like could not breathe after the race. You know, it was just like test was tight as a check. I'm like, someone had me like one of those little American flags to wave around, and I'm like, I'm just trying to enjoy the moment, being like, holy cow, I just made the Olympic team. Like I just want to soak it all in, and I'm like, I'd run like 10 steps and then have to like stop with my hands on my knees. I'm like, I can't catch my breath. It's terrible out here. You know, I'm trying to wave it. So it was pretty comical. I was like, all I just wanted to do was take this victory lap, and I could barely jog.
Talk to me about Very Nice Track Club. How did that come to? Was that in 2020, 2021?
2020.
Right.
Yeah.
You and Ronnie and Nick?
So if you want the abbreviated history,
Yeah.
I guess maybe is I had finished my career at University of Michigan, 2016. Signed a contract, and at the time had the option to stay with my college coach Kevin Sullivan, and kind of like a if it's not broken, don't fix it type of mentality. And I loved Ann Arbor, and thought it was a good training environment. I still had friends on the team, which funny enough, full circle, Ben Flanagan's now back on VNTC, so it's like,
Ben's a good guy, yeah.
Great guy. It was like, okay, I'm gonna stay here. Like this is clearly working. I've had great progress the last 2-3 years. Like it's only gonna get better. And but quickly learned the difference between being on a college team in a college town and being a pro runner, not affiliated with the team, but still kind of there. And it just I lost momentum. Right? You lose. You're not on the same schedule. No fault to Kevin, but he's, his job is to coach a college team.
Yeah.
He can't be there every time for me, and like that's unfair of me asking him that. So it was that 2020 year, like I said, during the pandemic, that I started getting connected with Ron. I always knew Ron. We were always, he's this coaching icon, especially in Ann Arbor, right? And I kind of told Sully, I was like, I just think with everything going on, that like I need training partners that are, like I want to go join with Willis, because at this point we overlapped when it would have made sense, but we weren't. He was clearly with Ron. I was still with Sully. Yeah. And it was like I felt like sometimes I was stuck in the middle, and so it was like I just need to make a decision that for me to run better, I just need to be with like Nick in a group. And so like it was pretty much started with just like Nick and I and other guys that were like post-collegiate runners or something like that in town, or buddies doing workouts, and Ron was the de facto coach and guiding everything. And so it kind of like leaned into Ron, and then things grew. The group, the 2021 season came up, and like Hobbs comes through the high school scene in Ann Arbor, who Ron knows his dad, and it's like all of a sudden this kid is like getting good enough to work out with us. And like Very Nice Track Club went from like basically cyclical, like 10 years ago had like Willis and Will Lear and Lee Emanuel and like Brandon, like these great guys, and Sully and Tim Bro had kind of only then Willis kind of survived.
Wow.
And then now all of a sudden it's like starting to take back up again, like renucleating around Warhurst, and like so now we have me, Hobbs, Morgan, Ben Flanagan, myself. We have a Big Ten steeplechaser from Iowa named Melinek. Like now we got a group of 7-8 guys. Eric Avila, Charlie Grace.
Yep.
We just added, right? So it's like all of a sudden it's like boom, we're a full-fledged pro group, and but it's very organic. It's I mean, Ron, like he's kind of a force of personality, and he's a brilliant coach. He understands the sport. He's been around it. He's seen everything. He's seen every level of athletes. He's seen world champion, Olympic medalists, milers, 5K steeplechasers. But I think his biggest strength is like his unconditional support, and like his ability to have the athlete take ownership for their own training. Yeah.
It's a maturity thing.
It's a maturity thing. He expects maturity out of you as a runner.
Yeah. And it becomes, there's a point, it seems to me, and this is observation, and I love the athlete-coach relationship, which again, I say is art and science, but he's your coach and your advisor too, because he expects you to have an involvement in it.
Yeah.
And that creates a mature athlete, I was talking to Josephus Lyles yesterday. Great kid, and I watched him come out from the shadow of his brother and have some confidence. But I also wanted him to talk to me about how he and Lance work. And Lance will give him the workouts, and he'll go, "Hey, coach, can we do a little more of this? And it's that, and that's what I see with the great coaches,
Yeah, it's selfless leader. Like they ask, what can I do? Taking ego out of it. Like Ron doesn't need to see the results for any of his own personal gain. He's asking, what can I do to help support this team, you on this day in this workout or in this season? Like, maybe he's coming off as a hard nose sometimes, right? Like, but he knows that like it's to drive you in a direction that's going to be beneficial to you. It's not like the instructions get handed down and you have to do that. It's very collaborative. So I was talking, over to Let's Run, like we have our Monday morning coffee chats, like we go do our run from the Kessler's house, come back to the kitchen, they have a big kitchen table, and we all sit around and like shoot the shit and talk about training for the week,
That's awesome.
Ben takes notes, we plan it up, and like, okay, what are we thinking for Tuesday? Okay, we want to do some strength work. It's tempo. How does the weather look? Oh, it looks great. You want to go down to Gallup? Great. Let's do, 6 by mile. Okay, Hobbs, maybe you'll do 4 by mile, or 5 by mile. Like, it's because the team kind of came from, like, grew organically for people that wanted to be there because they wanted to rely on a group of guys that were also equally driven and motivated.
Yeah.
That everyone helps drive the team as like rows the boat together. It's everyone has a voice. They can voice their opinion. Sometimes maybe joke that Hobbs' opinions aren't mature enough for to be taken seriously. Like, dude, you've only been doing this for 2 years. You don't know everything. Like, Ron's been doing this for 40. Stop trying to tell him that you think this is right.
He was interesting yesterday.
But he really cares about learning the sport. And I think that's what makes the group great. Is everyone's trying to learn. Yeah. Everyone's respecting each other's opinions, and it's it's almost a little bit of a democracy at a point. Sometimes.
Talk to me about the workouts, because I was watching. I was pulling some stuff off. I think it was Facebook and Twitter, and it was you guys had done this stuff where I think you did 1,000-meter hills.
Yep.
On the track, 300-meter hills. And then another. So it's Pat Colhesi, who was Di Costello's coach, and I trained with Rob for a little bit back in the 80s. Pat called it a complex training system.
Yeah.
Because I was trying to say, give me a word, you right?
Yeah.
Ronnie will throw everything in the kitchen sink at you, right?
Yes, I mean.
And how do you guys feel about that? Does that pump you guys up? Is it like, hey, I can handle anything? Is that kind of the approach?
I honestly don't think I would. Someone could easily write a book around like Ron's training philosophy, and it's definitely changed over the years. Like, to his credit, he's an old dog, but he can learn some new tricks, right?
He always is observing.
He's always observing. He listening to other coaches, and sometimes, again, he's been around long enough that he knows that the whole fad is cyclical sometimes, and he's got an idea of like what has worked, But he'll incorporate new elements, and if people want to do new things, we'll try new things. But you might like this as a concept. A friend and I were talking about this once of like. Something from wine called like terroir, meaning like from the earth, like from the place. Like a Burgundy is from Burgundy, a Chardonnay. Like Ron is Ann Arbor training, like
that
personified.
Sense.
Like we have the only reason it's 1,000-meter hill is because from the Huron River to the top of Getty's Drive through the Arboretum is 1,000-meter trail.
Okay.
That's it.
So it's like when Gösta Holmer invented fartlek. And he was coaching the Swedish team in the 30s. They sucked. They were really bad. And he'd had this long tradition. He was an Olympic decathlete. He's like, I'm going to lose my job if these guys don't start running well. So he started having to do interval work on trails because they had all these great trails, right? And so, and you can see a coach's brain going, how do I get these guys motivated? And they liked it, and they started running well again. So it's that idea of using your
the environment kind of necessitating it. The reason why we do these short, steep hills is because the Harvard Hill is always plowed during the winter. So middle of January, even a snowstorm, it's salted and plowed, and we can run a steep hill for 55, 60 seconds. So it's like that's why the hills are in there, and like a steady diet. And no, but I really do think I actually do think it's brilliant training. Like beyond the fact that like okay, if you look bigger picture, like why do we do certain things? Well, it makes sense, right? But it does have, one has a tradition to it, right? You've heard about Brian Deemer running this work on this hill, or Kevin Sullivan doing this rep for this thing, and it's like, man, the greats have all done this, you know? If I think I can just leapfrog these greats, like, or be just as good as them, I, you know, kind of follow in the footsteps. So that was, you know, especially as a young athlete, it's kind of, you feel like you're on hallowed ground a little bit in some of these workout spots. But two, it's just like having kind of this environment and variety means you don't have to second guess what's being done. They're like, we do the hill workout and it's great strength work without beating up like the pounding on your legs, you know, and you can really just like lean into like kind of this gritty, like you got to get up this 1,000-meter hill, and it sucks every step of it. It's hard, right? But you come back to the track and you're like, that part's done. You know, we've got 10K of volume already of like workout, but we're gonna run like 2, 3, 4 hard 600 on the track, and it's, you're able to, in your mind, you've separated these two places now and these two efforts that like what was hard then, it was in the past. Now you're on Ferry Field now, and Ron's like pumped up because you're gonna like run a super hard 600, and like you do it and you feel great, and like I really do think like there is reason to the training, and it really does work, and it's not just a bland diet of like K repeats every week. Tuesday no, it's like Ron loves variety. Like there's always some pattern to it, whether it's like pairs of twos of something, you know. Like you always try to figure out, you're like, oh, that's why we're doing 2 hills, 2 8s, 2 Ks, 2, you know, it's like, oh, it's all twos or something like that, you know. But you know, it's, he kind of keep you on your toes, but challenge you as well at the same time. I mean, it's tough stuff.
Okay, so here's my favorite stuff coming up now. Trash talking Hobbs Kessler.
All time. This is every run, man.
Like messing with him yesterday, and then they're driving to Flagstaff together, and I begged him to put a video on of it because I said I will pay for it, man. I want to see you guys ripping each other. You know, it'll be like Fear and Loathing. You know,
exactly. The car might not make it to Flagstaff.
What is it about Hobbs that you just guys? He's a youngin' and you guys have just got to mess with him?
Oh, I mean, yeah, right. Like he
seems like he will take it intestinally and then just give it back.
Yeah. He can dish it. I love Hobbs. Like he's a squirrely guy, young buck, right? Yeah. Full of talent. We all know that, right? But sometimes you got to put him in his place.
Oh yeah, my gosh.
Like, we always tease him like, oh wait, who's made a U.S. final here? You know, like. But no, like, oh, seriously, like it's a dynamic that no one's so self-absorbed into their own like ego that they can't take a little like rub it, and like Ron will make sure if you can't take a joke from Ron, you don't belong at Very Nice Track Club. It's that type of place. And I don't know, the more I hang out with Hobbs, the more I feel like I'm regressing and sliding back into some degenerate millennial or Gen X like TikTok video, but it's, I don't know, keeps me lively, keeps it fun.
When I asked Nick about him, just because I had been hearing about him, because I'm on the phone all day and I'm talking to coaches and stuff, and they're like, hey, have you seen this kid? This guy's really hot shit. And then first time I really watched him was on the Paul Doyle meet, right? Yeah. When he went under 4. And I'm talking to Nick. Nick was running a meet, and I said, "Hey, gotta tell me what the deal is." Yeah. Because Larry, if he listens to Ronnie and I, he's really gonna be good.
Really gonna be good.
You know. And I'm like, wow, because I'm going back to 2005 Helsinki. There was Kevin Sullivan. It was representing Canada. Nate Brannon was on it. Then Nick was New Zealand. Ronnie had 6.
Tim Bro probably there.
Tim was there in Steeple, and it was.
Was Alan Webb there at that time? No.
Webb drove 5. Webb may
that was
have
an
done.
insane.
Yeah,
insane
it was this incredible group, and people just didn't get it. And it was. I remember Mark Bosserdette was the sports marketing director at Reebok at the time. Yeah. And he had been at Nike and stuff. And Boss, the first time, told me, Ron's the best modeling coach in the country, man. He doesn't get the respect. And because it's like that whole thing about if you're not a mile at Oregon, and I'm just kind of going, Michigan, dude? I mean, come on, let's be really serious.
They did a Penn Relay.
It's just like, and I just remember that's the kind of stuff I grew up with, you know. And so I remember going back to the Notre Dame invite. Well, it was the National Catholic at the time, and I'm with John Gregoric and Chuck Aragon for a little less than a mile, and then I'm in a great place at 4 miles watching these guys kill each other over the last mile on the golf course, and it was like Raging Bull, you know. And it was the next time I saw the same thing was Rono and Salazar at the Pac-10s, and I'm at 5 miles, and they're 3/4 mile from me, and they're running a 4:12 last mile.
Jeez.
And Rono had gone out in 5. He was behind me for the first mile, and because he would do this, you just didn't, and he could just kind of do his thing, right? And then you're seeing these guys just kill each other, and then afterwards, they're pretty mellow. I would literally walk Henry to the front of the line because him and Samson would forget where the team was, and I was at Santa Clara, and I knew the guys, and they go, yeah, they're over here. So and so I developed a nice relationship with these guys, and they were all fun, but it was fascinating to watch. And it was before I started riding. It's fascinating to watch how these guys can be so mellow with each other outside of it, but also so into it. And that's my final question for you. So, you're friends with a lot of these guys you compete with, but you're in the last lap, and you're going to make an Olympic team. You're focused on one thing. You're focused on you getting there. And what are you telling yourself in that?
Yeah, you're trying to say, like, how do you flip that killer switch?
Yeah.
Because reality in our sports world, like, you're over in Europe, you're grabbing beers with guys after the race, the American, like, it's a small enough circle that everyone on a very personal level. And, I think, honestly, it's this people in the steeple group I race all the time that you do I maybe do keep a little bit more of a distance, not to build up like rivalry. There's nothing personally, but I have to race these guys for a spot on the team or for prize money, for a win, and there's respect all around, right? Everyone's an upstanding guy, but it's they're competitors, and I would say honestly, people in other events I am closer with because they're not the direct competitor, and I think. Luckily, our group is we're kind of spread across the distances and the nationalities. Hobbs is in the mile, Morgan's in the 5, I'm in the steeple, Ben's Canadian. Yeah. No one's directly competing with the other guy for a spot in any way, and so it makes it very easy to support your teammate. I want Hobbs to succeed 100%. I want Morgan to succeed 100%. Same with Ben. Could not be bigger fans of these guys and their performances, because we all know it's any individual success is reflected on the team and just is only going to help everyone else. So
you set a world record today for 33 minutes and 19 seconds.
I can get talking.
Final question.
No, that's fine. I'm all day.
I'm really enjoying this. Thank you, because it's fun. So I watch people race their careers, right, in different times. I hate mix-ins. I think it's the wrong place to ask questions. I like to get. I asked Frank Schroeder one time questions after he had just finished a 10, and he threw up in front of me, and I felt so bad. I apologized for years afterwards, and I was like, God,
everyone always asks questions, and I'm like, can I catch my breath?
That's why I think Lewis is good with it, Lewis Johnson is consummate interviewer. I mean, he knows how to do it and kind of allow you guys to breathe. But this is 2023, so you got Budapest.
Big year.
Next year you got Paris, got Tokyo, then you got a year off until whatever step comes up with the surprises in 2026. Then there's a World Championship 27. Yeah. We'll see if we ever get back to China for a while. It's really interesting, I'm talking to coaches over there right now, and I just wonder. And then 2028 is La La Land, right?
Yep.
So where do you see your career? Do you have a time frame? Are you kind of rolling with the punches? Are we going to see, do you want to be around to 2028? Are you going to be the grand old man of the steeplechase? Because you're late 20s?
I'm 29.
Okay, so you would be 30. Well, Henry made it. Brian made it. In the steeple, you're a wiser guy. Malinowski won at 34.
I think, if anything, in the past recent years, I think we've proved that, at least on male and female, age seems to be sometimes a benefit. Look how Molly Huddle, Kipchoge, Shalane Flanagan, these heavy hitters that are doing it to middle age. So, do I think of my age at, let's say, 2028 being hindered? Not at all. I'm not I'm going to be old or slow. Definitely not. got plenty of youth left in me, especially being around Hobbs. You know,
Yeah, sure.
I think it's more of a where do I put the focus to get to a goal like that? I mean, that's a big goal. You can't just.
Yeah.
I'm not a journeyman. I'm not just gonna half-ass it because
Yeah.
I love hanging out with my buddies. Like, we're going there for a job, and I could see maybe an inkling of that after I made the Tokyo team. To be honest, in 2021, that 2022 season last year was a little bit of like a searching for the next goal. You know, I'd arrived at this massive goal.
Yeah.
I'm done a much better job in talking to Ron and like reframing, okay, what do we do next? Especially right now, right? We have Budapest, like we have Paris. Like those, now I have an idea of like how to start at the ladder and get there again. Post Paris, so I don't know if you know, I'm in a PhD program.
No.
And I'm finishing up at graduate program at the University of Michigan.
What are you studying?
Statistics.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to geek out with you later.
So I'm done with all. I'm middle of research right now. Got some very stressful weeks. Got some other times to like, you know, thankfully a very great environment, great advisor, great people that like really support my running. So like, there are times in maybe the fall when it's off season and then I'm slammed with work, but like I make space for running. Like,
sure.
You know, running is a very important part of my life. But there's a point where I want to do things outside the sport. You know, other passions.
Yeah.
You know, running is, you devote 30 hours a week. You sit, you know, it sucks physical energy out of your day, your mental power to like do this. So it's like, maybe there's a time when I want to do something else. I don't know. You know, like what else would excite me? You know, maybe it's moving to the roads in the marathon, honestly.
Yeah.
Like after Paris, I could see Ben's going to be moving to the marathon. Like I could see us putting together a really good little marathon training group as well, you know, and we'll see. I think that's an open question that I wouldn't want to answer until some of those goals are achieved at Paris. Yeah.
No, well, I'm going to look forward to seeing you compete.
Thank you.
And you have given me, this is probably several stories, so there'll be some Mason Ferlic stuff up.
Well, feel free to call me if you need some more filler material.
This is Larry Eater with RunBlogRun. We've had Mason Ferlic, Olympian in the steeplechase, member of the Very Nice Track Club, an Adidas-sponsored athlete, and one of my new favorite interviews. So this was a lot of fun. You were awesome. Thank you.